Hey, it's Dr. John Terry, the Black Belt Leader, and welcome to the Black Belt Leadership Podcast, where each week I'm giving you tips, tools, insights, and resources to help you become a better version of who you are and what you do as you discover, develop, and deploy your own Black Belt leader within. Growing up, I heard a phrase that didn't make sense to me, and the phrase was this: to go up, sometimes you've got to go down. Now, as a young boy, that sentence made no sense to me. I thought it was odd, and as I thought about it, it was counterproductive. After all, I'd gone to the neighbor hill and I'd climbed the hill. I'd gone and done a little bit of, mountain climbing in some of the hills here in Arkansas, and I didn't have to go down to go up. I went to the base of the mountain, I started climbing, and the next thing you know, I was on the top of the hill. I was on the top of the mountain. Why in the world would you first have to go down before you attempted to go up? Well, at the time, I didn't understand the importance of a foundation when building a structure. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about foundations and want to pose this question: what are you building tomorrow on? Now, the term foundation comes from the Latin word fundus. That word literally means bottom. Now, the term foundation, as we think about it today, it's historically represented the groundwork that would be required for building a physical structure. It also represented the groundwork required to establish an abstract system or an idea. So when we think about a foundation, in essence, it's really an essential, immovable base that supports the entire weight of a physical structure or a concept or an idea. Now, in particular, when we look at a foundation, my mind goes to construction. And when you are building a physical building, the foundation is the lowest load bearing part of any structure. It's the starting point of building any building, from a two-story house to the 1,776-foot One World Trade Center. Now, typically the foundation is located below the ground, out of sight, but not always. The foundation is there to support the entire weight of the structure that sits upon it. The foundation anchors the structure to solid ground, and in doing so, it provides stability and strength. But to me, most important of all, and often missed in the conversation of a foundation, is the fact that a foundation dictates the upper limits of how high a structure can reach. It determines the height and the weight limitations of a building, as well as size and structural restrictions. So ultimately, a foundation serves as the final arbiter of growth and capacity. It serves as a limiter of what's possible. Now, did you get that? The foundation serves as the final arbiter of growth and capacity. It serves as a limiter of what's possible. Hold on to that, because we're going to come back to that in just a moment. Now, let's get back to construction. The depth of a foundation is going to be determined based upon soil bearing capacity, the structural load of the building that's actually going to be built, and environmental factors like the frost line. Now, key considerations to reach stable, non-compressible soil are important, and all the factors that I just discussed come into bear in that calculation. You also want to ensure that the foundation is deep enough to prevent settlement or frost heave, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. Now, you got to remember, the foundation dictates the upper limits of how high a structure can reach, how high the building can go. It serves as the final arbiter of growth and capacity. So let me give you a couple of examples. Let's look at a two-story house and let's compare that to One World Trade Center. Now, the foundation for a typical two-story house, the depth of that foundation is going to range somewhere between 5 and 7 feet. That depends on the soil, the climate, and the structural requirements of that area. Now, standard practice for most two-story homes here in the United States requires a minimum of 24 to 36 inches of reinforced concrete footings. These are going to ensure stability and structural load-bearing capacity as the foundation is connected to these footings. Now, in colder regions of the United States, the foundation must go deeper than the frost line to prevent the upward displacement of soil in freezing conditions. This is known as frost heave. It's where water makes its way in under the foundation during warm seasons. And then when the weather gets cold, that water freezes. And when it freezes, it expands. And that expansion, known as frost heave, can actually lift concrete and can crack foundations. That's for a two-story house. 5 to 7 feet foundation, 24 to 36 inches of reinforced concrete footings. Now, let's compare that to One World Trade Center. The foundation for One World Trade Center in New York City is roughly 110 feet deep at its base. Not 5 to 7 like for a two-story house, 110 feet deep at its base. The design of the foundation utilizes a robust concrete core up to 2 feet thick, and it's surrounded by a perimeter steel frame. Now, what this does is it creates a secure foundation footing upon which an additional 187 feet of reinforced concrete was then added to this 2-foot base to support the entire building's vertical structure. The load that all of this weight was going to bear required 189 feet of reinforced concrete. This is what provides structural stability for One World Trade Center. Again, a two-story house, what, 30, 40 feet in the air? One World Trade Center, 1,776 feet in the air. The depth and the breadth of the foundation is important because remember, the foundation dictates the upper limits of how high a structure can reach, how high we can actually build. So the foundation, once again, serves as a final arbiter of growth and capacity. So remember, that is important when it comes to building, but also a foundation can serve as an underlying basis or a principle, and that's important to remember as well. Like a building, a foundation is going to provide a statement, and that statement is going to provide the necessary support, stability, and structure that creates the support, the foundation for an idea, an argument, a system, or a process. It's the hidden groundwork that supports the superstructure of a concept or an idea. Again, the capacitor of growth and the capacitor of capacity is going to be the foundation. The foundation, the depth and the breadth of the foundation limits what's possible. Now, at this point, you may be saying, John, that's well and good, but I didn't join you for an engineering lesson today. I came to get a personal growth lesson. What does this have to do with personal growth? Well, it turns out a lot, because when we think about success, just like any other thing we build in our lives, success has to have a foundation. And if that foundation cannot support the success we want to build, we're setting ourselves up for failure before we ever start. Remember, a foundation serves as the final arbiter of growth and capacity. It serves as a limit of what's possible. And that is true in your personal life. So when we think about a foundation as a structural base upon which long-term success is derived, it's important that we build it well, because the foundation that we're establishing in our own lives through personal daily growth is going to ensure stability, sustainability, and it's going to give us a sense of purpose and confidence that whatever it is we are seeking to build, we're going to have the ability to do so and to do so successfully. That is important to know. Now, for personal success, foundation starts by defining a vision of what success looks like to you. That requires cultivating a personal mindset. It requires developing yourself so that you can actually step in and accomplish whatever it is that you envision doing. That requires setting goals, developing key skills. It requires that you build your character and your self awareness. It requires that you foster resilience that's going to be necessary to withstand the challenges that you're going to face along the way. The foundation of you and what you're building through daily personal growth has got to be strong enough. It's got to be thick enough. It's got to be secure enough to support what it is you want to build. The foundation of you is going to provide a stable platform for what success looks like for you going forward. And that stable platform is going to be there to sustain your momentum as you keep reaching and building upwards. Now, there's a classic book, and I've mentioned it a few times. I want to mention it again. One of the classic books, if you don't have it in your library, I want to encourage you to take a look at that book. Matter of fact, go to Amazon, go to Barnes & Noble, go to a local bookstore and pick up The Magic of Thinking Big. The Magic of Thinking Big was written by David Schwartz in 1959. It remains one of the classic self-help books that you need to have in your library. Now, in the book, Dave Schwartz challenges his readers to begin to shift their mindset from small thinking to big thinking, to stop dreaming small dreams and to start dreaming big dreams. He goes on in the book to emphasize that belief and positive habits are the keys to reaching goals in every area of your life. I find it interesting that the number one, the very first essential character quality of being a black belt leader in life is belief, because you cannot achieve what you do not believe. So that probably came from Dave and other influencers in my life from years ago, but belief is so, so important. Positive habits that are going to move you forward are important. And in this book, David Schwartz is going to take his readers through a step-by-step process to help you establish what I would refer to as a firm foundation upon which big thinking can be used to build the life of your dreams. Now, for you and for any of us, thinking big is important. Matter of fact, it is essential if you want to experience success at a massive level in your life. I've never seen super successful people that think small. Big thinking people experience big success in their lives because not only do they dream big and think big, they prepare themselves for big things. And this is a foundational lesson I want to make sure that you don't miss. Yeah, I'm sorry, there was a pun there. It was intended, but this foundational lesson is important. Don't want you to miss it. Let me encourage you to write it down. Here it is. The bigger your dream, the bigger the foundation you're going to need to support that dream and sustain it. So my first question is, how big is your dream? And then my second question is this: how deep do you need to dig to ensure that what you're planning to build, that the substructure you're putting in place is gone deep enough and is firm enough and is embedded on solid rock so it can support that big dream you want to build? Because if you want to go up, you got to first go down. And you've got to establish what is foundationally required to support and sustain that dream. And that means becoming the very best version of you that you can become. That means you got to determine, how deep do you need to dig to ensure that what you're planning to build has a substructure in place that is firm, that is solid, that is immovable, and that is capable of bearing the weight of what you're planning to build. And that means you've got to develop yourself to be able to support the dream that you want to build and be able to sustain that dream long term. Now, if you hadn't figured it out by this point, building a foundation is a process and it requires a plan. Let me give you a simple 5-step process to building a foundation for success in your life. And it starts with planning, because planning is the first essential step in building anything worthwhile. You never build a building, you never build a house, you never build a skyscraper without first having a blueprint. So the vision, the idea, the dream of a structure is something that we do in the planning stage. And we take that vision and that dream and we begin to plan of how do we take that vision, that dream, that image out of our minds and turn that into a tangible representation in the earth. Well, it starts with a blueprint. We've got to define what that vision looks like on paper. We've got to build out clear and measurable goals to get us from where we are to where we want to be. And as you're drafting your blueprint, what are you doing? You're organizing, you're thinking, you're anticipating obstacles, you're determining necessary resources, and you're identifying the tools that you're going to need to do the work. Now, it's in this planning phase that you're defining the end goal of what success looks like, and you're documenting the process to build it and know what you need to do as you go. You're identifying and documenting the steps in the process to get you from planning to completion. You're setting deadlines. You're identifying what materials need to be ordered. You're determining the resources that you need to acquire to be able to succeed and to finish what it is you plan to start. You're also evaluating risk and creating contingency plans so you can pivot just in case. That is the planning process. Now, step two in the process is preparation. And this is the bridge between planning and execution. Preparation is going to make sure that when it's time to act and the opportunity arises to start building, you're ready to go and you've got what's needed to be able to experience success. In this phase of building your foundation, you're acquiring the necessary skills. You're developing yourself to the next level of you. You're gathering the resources you need. You're building the resilience you're going to need to keep building even when the building gets difficult. Yeah, it's easy when you're building the first floor of the World Trade Center. But when you're on the 105th floor of the One World Trade Center, it gets a little more difficult. The bigger your dream, the bigger your build, the more resilience you're going to need along the way. So it's in this preparation phase that you're going to engage in continuous learning because the thinking that got you to where you are isn't going to get you to where you need to be. You want to develop your talent, your skills, and your abilities that you're going to need to be able to succeed at ever higher levels. This is why you want to focus on the quality of your thinking. And we talk about this a lot because it's the quality of your thinking that improves the quality of what you say, what you do, what you become, and what you want to accomplish. And it is the quality of your thinking as you improve it that improves the quality of your capability to say, to do, to become, and to accomplish more. As you're going through this process of preparation, you're building confidence, you're building resilience, and that resilience is going to allow you in the future to see and seize opportunities disguised as challenges and to keep building even when it's tough as you're effectively executing your plan. Now, step three in the process is resources. And resources are the fuel that's going to propel your vision from your head into reality. Because you've now done the plan, you've now prepared yourself both mentally and physically for the challenge of the head. Now it's time to gather the tools, the capital, and the support you're going to need to execute the plan. In the construction world, they refer to this as the money, muscle, and material phase of the job. Now, when it comes to personal growth, that could be the financial investment in you so that you have an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to become better. It could be investing in skills training or talent training or ability training. It could be human resources of bringing people in that have skills you lack so together you can build this big dream that you can't build alone. It could be the acquisition of intellectual or digital assets that you need. It could be physical resources. It could be the proper allocation of time. All of these things are necessary to be able to start building and finish building and achieve success in your life. Now, it's in this resources step that you're not only going to identify what you need, but once you acquire those assets, you now have to effectively manage them. You've got to understand what resources you've got, how they're going to be made available, when they're going to be made available, and once you've got them in your possession, how you optimize the use of these resources to maximize long-term success. So this phase is about leveraging resources, leveraging technology, and leveraging your skills and the skills of others to effectively execute so that your foundation and the structure you build upon it is going to be built to last. Now, time is the fourth step in the process. In the book of Ecclesiastes, as the birds famously turned into song, to everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. There is a time to build, and you need to know when that time is. As you're looking to build success in some area of your life, time is the evaluation of how long it's going to take you from preparation to completion, looking at the duration of the project in its entirety. Again, you've got to set timelines to be able to move so that you know resources show up at the appropriate time and the people you need to help you along the way are going to be there to maximize the use and to optimize the use of those resources. So the duration of the project is a time element you've got to consider. But time also means the patience you're going to have to build into yourself and be willing to go through delays that are inevitably going to happen. And patience is going to be necessary, and that's an integral part in the time process. Got to understand this. Dedication and discipline applied over time are going to be necessary and essential to turn your plans into tangible results. Did you get that? Dedication and discipline applied over time. This is the persistence phase of the build. It's in this time element where your desire, your determination, and your discipline are going to come together to actually make things happen. It's time that transforms dreaming into doing and then ultimately into done. This is where big thinking starts to manifest itself into tangible results in your life. Now, the fifth and final element of building a firm foundation is people. After all, if you're dreaming a big dream and that dream is really big, I hate to break it to you, but you can't fulfill and build that dream by yourself. You're going to need people to be able to achieve success in that area. Now, this people phase is a crucial phase of the process because it's here that you're going to focus on engaging the right people at the right time to aid you in construction of your foundation and the success you're going to build on top of it. This is where you begin to build a team of like-minded people that share your values, that share your vision, and that share your hope for the future that can come alongside you and lend their talents and do what is required to help you complete your plan. In the words of my friend and mentor, Dr. John Maxwell, I believe the people element, he sums it up well. One is too small a number to achieve greatness. And if your big dream can be accomplished all by yourself, I hate to break it again to you again, that's not a big dream. When you got a dream so big that you don't see any way you can get it done, and you know you're going to need other people to help you, now you're starting to dream big. And it's in this phase of the process that your ability to lead and to influence other people become critical. Because you need to be able to lead and influence the people who can assist you on your journey to come alongside and help. You need to be able to find the people who share a similar passion for what you want to build, who can lend their talent, who can lend their skill, who can lend their knowledge or their expertise, and together you can accomplish what you can't do by yourself. And this is where your ability to equip and empower other people that have skills and talents that need to be developed, This is your opportunity to develop those around you and to build a team of leaders that can lead themselves as a result of your mentorship that becomes invaluable, and not just building this area of success in your life, but moving on to what's next and what's next and what next. Remember, one is too small a number to achieve greatness. And if you're destined for greatness, you're going to need a team to get you there. So those are the 5 steps. And when you understand those 5 steps in the process, together, you and your team can not only establish a firm foundation for success, but you can go beyond that and you can actually see your big dream come into its physical representation in the earth as together you and your team build your vision of the future and you begin to experience tangible results when it comes to success in your life. Now, before I wrap up today's teaching, there's one more thing you need to know about foundations that's important, and I want to share that with you right now. A foundation that is built improperly, that's overstressed, or that's overweighted, the structural integrity of that foundation can be compromised. Did you get that? Built improperly, overstressed, or overweighted, you can compromise the structural integrity of a foundation. And when that foundation is compromised, it can shift, it can crack, it can buckle, or it can fail. Now, early engineers learned the hard way that failing to anchor a foundation to solid ground was a disaster waiting to happen. They also learned that when foundations are built above the freeze line, water can make its way under the foundation, and upon freezing, it disrupts the integrity of the foundation and the structure upon which it sits. Now, if a foundation sinks unevenly because it's not securely fastened to rock, and one side of a foundation begins to sink faster or deeper than another, in a house as an example, you start to see stair-step cracks in brickwork. You start to see diagonal cracks across windows and doors. Excess moisture can cause soil to push against a foundation wall. Now, this can result in horizontal cracking or bowing, or ultimately it can lead to structural failure. Roots growing under a foundation can extract moisture from the soil. This can cause the soil to shrink and the foundation to begin to settle and sink unevenly. Now, some indications of structural failure, and again, in a home, can show up as cracks in the walls, doors or windows that stick or jam or won't latch or won't close. Other visible signs in a home or a building can include gaps that begin to appear between the foundation and the structure. It can show up as a sloping, a sagging, or a bouncing floor. It can also show up as walls that pull away from ceilings or gaps in the exterior brickwork. Now, I can tell you when I start to see those things in a building, I'm probably not going to spend a lot of time in a structurally unsound building because there's foundation problems, and you probably wouldn't want to spend a lot of time there either. But when you think about structural integrity and structural compromise, the same thing can happen in your own personal life if you don't pay attention to things that can compromise your structural integrity, your success foundation. As you're building your success, understanding the foundation matters. You want to make sure you're paying attention to the indicators of potential failure, of potential compromise of your foundation. Let me give you a couple of examples. One could be overinvesting in one area of personal growth while you're neglecting other critical areas at the same time. This can result in lopsided growth and a foundation that slopes and sits at an angle. Another area could be allowing small, unignored problems to get bigger, or to have negative habits like groundwater that can seep into your life, and at the unexpected time can begin to freeze success and disstable your foundation and creating structural instability. Another example could be launching a project, launching an idea or a vision for success without first evaluating your structural capacity. What can you as an individual bear based upon your own personal growth and development up to this point? Or maybe it's building before your foundation is firmly established. That can cause your foundation to shift, to crack, to buckle, or to fail. Again, your foundational success is going to be built on you. And you've got to make sure that you are strong enough, that you are reinforced enough to support the weight of that big vision that you have for success in your life. Now, another area where you could be watching for signs of failure or compromise could be a failure to count the cost before you start to build. And maybe you end up investing all your time, energy, and resources in building a strong foundation. But when you're done building the foundation, there's insufficient time or resources to finish what you started. I see this often in people that procrastinate. They have this big vision or this big dream, but they're preparing to get started, to get ready to do something tomorrow, and they're spending their entire life, decades, preparing to get ready to start, to begin. And by the time they finally establish a strong foundation and they're ready to go build the vision of their dreams, they're too sick, they're too old, they're too tired to build what they've envisioned building their entire lives. Procrastination can also be a sign of failure that's looming and a compromise to your foundation. But now let me share some good news. We've talked about structural instability. We talked about compromise, but here's some good news. Even if, as we're having that conversation, you say, John, that's me. I'm dealing with a firm foundation issue. My foundation is cracking, it's buckling, it's sagging, it's not strong enough, it's not deep enough, it's not thick enough, it's not reinforced enough for the dream I have for the future. Well, guess what? I've got good news. A foundation can be fixed. A foundation can be reinforced. A foundation can be realigned and repaired. A foundation can be built upon to make it better, stronger, and more stable so that bigger, better things can be built upon it. So here's my thought. If you find yourself right now, this moment, and you want to admit, having a man in the mirror, moment in the mirror, moment with yourself, that you're building on a weak or an unstable or a lopsided foundation, let me ask you to do two things. Number one, take a pause. Number two, stop building. The last thing you want to do if you see you're building on a weak, an unstable, or a lopsided foundation is to keep building. You're adding more stress to a physical structure, a foundation that isn't prepared to support it. And even if you were to finish the project, it's going to be sitting lopsided, and eventually cracks are going to form. And over time, that building, that structure is going to have integrity issues and are likely going to collapse. So again, if you find yourself building on a weak, an unstable, or a lopsided foundation, number one, take a pause. Number two, stop building. Number three, go back, take the time to strengthen the substructure. You want to bring your personal success foundation up to code. And that may mean investing in time, investing in resources to become a better version of who you are and what you do. So you build your capacity so that you are going to be able to structurally support the success that you want to experience in your life. That's why daily personal success and daily personal growth are so important. Because the more we grow, the deeper, the stronger we're building the foundation of our lives. And that means we can keep building that skyscraper of success higher and higher, one level at a time. A firm, solid foundation is going to be there to support you, not make your work harder. So again, if it's weak, if it's unstable, if it's lopsided, take a pause, stop building, strengthen the substructure, bring it up to code, and once that's done, you can start building again. And this time, I can promise you, the work is going to go smoother It's going to go faster, and you're going to be able to build higher than you've ever built before. Now, maybe you've heard the parable from the Bible of the wise man who built his house on the rock and the foolish man who built his house on the sand. If you haven't, allow me to paraphrase. Two men wanted to build a house. One chose to anchor his house on the bedrock. The other man decided, I'm going to build my house on the seashore. I'm not worried about a strong foundation. I want to be there where I can watch the sun rise every day. Well, they both built beautiful houses and they both moved in and called that place home. And then one day, a massive storm came. It struck the beach where the man that had built his house on the sand lived. And as that storm came, the unstable sand upon which his house was built began to shift. It began to slide. It began to buckle. It began to fail. And that poor man's house, that foolish man's house, ultimately ended up collapsing, and the waves swept what was left of that house, the debris, into the ocean, and that house was never seen again. Now, the wise man who built his house on a firm, solid foundation, he endured the same storm. He endured the same wind and rain, but because his house was anchored on a firm, solid foundation, he and his house rode out the storm, and at the end of the storm, his house still stood unscathed. Now, think about that into the future. The children, the grandchildren, and the great grandchildren of the wise man could visit that house in the future, knowing that this man who had successfully built on a firm foundation had built something that was not going to just be there today and be there tomorrow. It was going to be there decades and generations from now. That house still stood. The children, the grandchildren, and the great-grandchildren of the foolish man, they went to the beach and enjoyed a beautiful beach, but they had no idea that their father, their grandfather, their great-grandfather had foolishly built a house on the shifting sands because he built on a foundation that wasn't established. It wasn't firm, and it couldn't support the vision that he had for the future. And really, that leads to a very practical takeaway from that story and what I've shared today. Where you seek to build success in your life matters. Let me say that again. Where you seek to build success in your life matters. So if you take the time to first establish a firm foundation, and that's why we talk so much about personal growth in this podcast, when you establish that firm foundation, guess what? You can build bigger, higher, faster, and stronger. And guess what? You can even build better. And most of all, what you're building, once it's done, is going to be able to ride out the storms of life, and it's going to remain unscathed. So it's not going to be success today and failure tomorrow. It's going to be success today, continued success tomorrow, and success that lasts for decades and for generations. Your goal in life is not to build success that's fleeting. Your goal in life should be success that will last, that will outlive you and last as a shining testimony to your kids, your grandkids, your great-grandkids, and the people you leave behind who will one day take your place. So let me leave you with this. Don't forget, a foundation serves as the final arbiter of your personal growth and your personal capacity. Your foundation, the foundation that you establish in your life through personal growth and the principles that you espouse and the non-negotiables in your life that you embrace, those things are going to serve as your final arbiter of how high you can grow, how far you can go, and what your capacity to succeed are going to be. Your foundation serves as a limiter of what's possible. So my encouragement to you, build your foundation deep. Build your foundation strong. Build it wide enough, deep enough, strong enough to support the big dreams and vision of success that you have. Remember this, a foundation acts as the structural base upon which your long-term success is going to be derived. That foundation that you're building through daily personal growth is going to give you the stability, the sustainability, and it's going to instill a sense of purpose and confidence that I can do this. Let's go. And don't forget, big dreams require a big foundation to support them. So here's my challenge. Dream big. Dream the biggest dream that you can big, and then build your foundation accordingly. Remember, your future success awaits. So dream big and build your foundation accordingly. I'm Dr. John Terry, the Black Belt Leader. Thanks for joining me. Have a great day.